Looks like we have Hala and Margot. Welcome.
Just doing a little
Yeah.
few technical things here.
Yep. How are you both? Are you
Thank
in a
you.
limousine, Hala?
That's a change. No, it's a private jet. It's a background.
Oh,
Private jet. Do you have your champagne?
I have a drink. It's a mushroom drink.
Okay. A mushroom drink is very fitting, and it kind of goes with the color scheme, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
but it's not the mushroom. It's like
No, no, not
literally
that one.
the grocery store mushroom, not the
No.
dispensary
Oh,
mushroom.
no. It's the
No, 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 no.
healthful. No, I know.
It's the cacao, the powder with
Yeah, I
the
know.
immune support one. Yes. Cheers. Yes, thank you, Nancy, for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just gonna post something really quick on LinkedIn
Okay.
and see if we can grab a few more people, because that's the thing is, we just don't know what time of day is the best. And you know we do what we can do, and whoever can make it, is that's the case. I mean, we've got Jenny that is here from Scotland. She is one of our Money Made Easy coaches. And what time is it there? What's the local time in
Nine
Scotland?
o'clock at night. 9 o'clock at
9
night.
o'clock.
Ooh.
Great. Well, thank you. Well, let's go ahead and just do some quick introductions. And Kimberly, you're the first on my screen, so I'm going to let you just take a second and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. I'm Kimberly Flory, and I'm a financial coach who helps pharmacists and healthcare professionals. They're a much needed group that has trouble with their finances because of the high student debt. So I help to empower them. And I'm a retired pharmacist, and I'm also in Florida. So I'm coming to you from Florida, Fort Myers, Florida.
All right, Leslie.
Hi, money coach Leslie Priest with CS Financial Coaching. My specialty is coaching professional women to understand where they are, to clear the fog of money, and to be able to chart a path to achieve their dreams and goals. So that's what I love to do. And I always say you got to figure out where you are before you can figure out how to get where you want to go. So that's what I do.
So true. Great.
Oh,
Well, Jenny, how about yourself?
Hi, yes, I'm Jenny. I'm from Jenny Marshall Coaching across in Scotland. As Nancy said, it's 9 o'clock at night, but that's cool. I'm a money and a mindset coach, so I combine the mindset and financial education. I mainly work with people in business, which is brilliant because quite often if you're in business, there's an assumption that you know all about money, and sometimes you do, and sometimes you need a bit of help. So I'm there to do that. So it's lovely to be here tonight. Thank you very much.
Great. And I am Nancy Ward. I'm a financial coach. I am in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I help women to reduce their credit card debt without the constraints of budgeting. I said the B word. Yes, I did,
you
but that's okay.
did.
Because budgeting is just like saying, oh, I'm going to go on a diet and I'm going to count all of my calories. No. So I work with women in order to help them figure out the best way to reduce their debt, but also enjoy the things that they want. So if you want that Starbucks every day, you go, girl, because you deserve it. But let's talk about cutting out the other expenses. So, well, great. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Like I said, I just put a post on LinkedIn. So who knows who, we've got Shelly who just joined us. So that's great. But what we're going to talk about money madness. And we've just, I think we're still in March Madness. I don't know. People are still talking about their, thank you, Leslie. Leslie's a sports person in our Money Made Easy coaches group, because that's beyond me. But we are in the final four, because I've been seeing people talking about their brackets. So we are still, bouncing the ball in order to play that. So we just wanted to bring money into a sports reference and say, how do we work on our offense and our defense, and how do we win with finances? So I just wanted to ask, if any of the coaches want to get started, what are some things that we can do offensively in order to work with our finances? Don't all talk at once.
Well, you know what? If the rest of you are silent, I just want to talk about the sports analogy just a little bit, because I mean, what does a coach do? What does a coach do? A coach helps the team build their skills, come together, all face in the same direction toward winning. Figure out, like I said, where they are starting, and then brings them together with a strategy. And you need both offense and defense to have a winning season, right? And so you really want to think about these things. And with money, having a winning season means the long term, but we also need to look at short term goals and long term goals and adjust our strategies that way. So, when we're going to talk about offensive or defensive strategies, some of them need to be used and really emphasized in the short term, and some of them really need to be worked on for more long term winning the season. So that's what I wanted to just start with to sort of frame our discussion. So I'm going to let my dog inside. I'll be right back.
Yeah, but picking up on Leslie's chat there about the coach, actually, I wrote something down and I thought it might be useful to share. So for me, a coach, when I think about a sports game, is somebody who's not in the game because they're watching the players, but they want to win as much as the players. And they can see sometimes what's going on when you're playing the game and you're in it, you don't see what other people do. So it's about shining a light on what could maybe be better, what could maybe be different, how we could maybe just tweak things. So I think from that perspective, if we're talking about Money Coach, that's a really, kind of, I guess, neat analogy is like how can a money coach stand on the sidelines and want the person to do the best that they can do and win the game without actually being in it?
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. The coach trains and equips people. And the coach brings an outsider's perspective, not being physically in the game.
So
Yeah,
some
that's
of
what
the
I was going to say, like even strategizing too, helping them strategize, coming up with that plan, which is the same thing with the money. The person's doing all the work, but the coach is there to help them strategize.
And
and
in some of
and
the,
bounce. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
And bounce ideas off of, because it is a two-way street with the coach and their players. So,
Well, and even, to be a good player, you have to practice. You have to do the drills. You have to have that muscle memory. So, does anybody want to take that thought process of consistency with their finances? Anybody want to take that? I'm batting it to you.
Well, I think building those habits, every single day, incorporating it into your regular routine, will build those habits. Like something as simple as checking your bank statement or your bank account, maybe do it after you brush your teeth, or maybe when you're having a cup of coffee, or, you know, even in the evening, thinking of gratitude, which can help, you know, with those habits as well, doing that at night, maybe when you wind down, but, you know, incorporating it in with something that you do every single day, you know, makes that muscle memory, if you will.
And
Good point.
those habits are really important because consistency, as we said, but is a key. But you do have to adjust your consistency over time, depending on what goals and milestones um, you're working on. So, I did you kick us off with offense? I'm just trying to.
I did, and actually, I wanna toss the ball over to Jenny. You just made a comment about something, but it's like Jenny. It's like every time I listen to her talk about mindset, I learn something. So, can you talk a little bit about? Leslie just said something. I had something in my brain, and I was like, oh, that would be perfect for Jenny to talk about. So, you know, you talk about mindset so much, Jenny. What else can you know, give us some more insights on that?
Yeah, so thank you, Nancy. That's really kind of you to say that. So I wrote down an example when Leslie was talking because it just came to me. So one of our greatest Olympians, staying on the sports theme, you may not have heard of him, Sir Chris Hoy. He won over 6 Olympic gold medals. He was absolutely phenomenal. And he lives about 30 miles away from me. And I talked to a sports psychologist last year who was involved in some of the cycling when he was younger. And you would have thought with all his success at the age of 17 that he had it at, you know, he was the shining star. He wasn't. In the city of Edinburgh, where he rode, which is not a big city, he was the 3rd best cyclist. So they did some studies when Sir Chris managed to do all his success, and they were like, why was he the one that managed all that phenomenal success when actually when he was 17 he was just the 3rd? I mean, being the 3rd is quite cool as well, but you know, obviously stratospherically much better. And the difference was that he believed. And without arrogance, because he would say he never thought that he would win 6 gold medals. That's not what you aim to be, but he wanted to be the best and he believed he could be, and he kept showing up for training. So what they said was actually his talent as well as his hard work paid off. But the sports psychologist said, you know, he turned up 10 minutes before training started, and before his rivals. He trained harder and he listened. So he really cultivated the mindset. So I'm not suggesting that we all have to be the equivalent of Sir Chris Hoy, but that was what made the difference in him. And I think that's the difference is if we believe we can, and it's not we can believe that we're millionaires. If we can if we want to, but whatever challenge that we've got, if we believe and we really can cultivate that belief through what Kimberly says in terms of habits, we can create that confidence in money, what the same as Sir Chris Hoy did in terms of his position. So just because you start with the most talent or with the most money, that doesn't mean to say that you'll end it. It's the people who set the goals, keep going, keep that belief. It will waver, of course it does, and it would have wavered for Sir Chris, but you don't hang on to that disbelief for long. You keep coming back and telling yourself, yes, I can do this. This is just a blip, and keep going.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay. I'm gonna just ask our friends here who have joined us. And you can also just raise your hand and we'll call on you and you can chime in this discussion. But how many of you um, find it challenging to establish a new habit? Yes or no? You can use your little raise hand emoji or thumbs up for
Or just
yes or
drop
thumbs
something in the
down for
chat.
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who has who finds it challenging to build new habits and stick with them? I see Tracy, and then I hear crickets from everyone else. Hala, I'm going to call on you. Are you good at starting and sticking with new habits to build on your future?
To be honest and transparent, I gotta say yes, because that's part of my practice, but it does take effort. And my whole thing is about being consistent and sticking to it. And yes, however, I gotta say it, when it comes to finances, having Nancy by my side, that has added the consistency, because as an entrepreneur, we can get so busy and we might have our stuff next to us, but grabbing it and writing on it is a difference. I get sidetracked with the financial part lately. Ever since entrepreneur, so having a coach by your side does add great value. So thank you, Nancy.
It really does, and thank you for that comment. Um, so you are sort of an expert habit builder. Okay, so how about Tracy, Margot, Shelley, and Mary? Anyone, does anyone have trouble? I know we have kind of a mantra we use, make 5 minutes matter, and you do have to make the choice to
Yes.
build a habit, and you have to be intentional. You have to start, and you need to sort of understand why you're starting that habit. Why? Because if it's not helping you build your future, whether that's talking about money or going on a diet or, changing your eating patterns, habits, rather than going on a diet, I should say, because going on a diet is temporary. If you go on a diet with your money, it's kind of painful,
Yes.
but 5 minutes matter, right? You start small, but you apply that small intention consistently. And I've found you build that habit over time, even if you just set a timer or an alarm on your phone and just work on your money. And when I say work on your money, that also helps you build those money muscles. Okay, this is like weight training for an athlete. Um, because you're doing it consistently, you do it daily. Maybe it's just 5 minutes, but it's 5 minutes of intentional, focused progress on understanding where you are or building your goals or adjusting. Kim mentioned check your accounts, maybe each day, but pretty frequently. And in terms of offense and defense, um, I think, and I don't know if you all agree with me, but I think that's kind of a defensive move. I know we were supposed to focus on offense per our wonderful moderator, Nancy, but I think that habit building is part of building the defense, part of building the walls or the structure that you need in place, building the tools to take you where you want to go to build your future.
Tracy, I know you unmuted there, so we would love to hear your feedback.
Yes, I know all too well about trying to build new habits when you have different neurodiverse conditions and things. It's like, and like Leslie said, starting with 5 minutes can start building those habits. And I have seen that with working with her in that too. But it's like, yeah, one of the things that I was struggling with, I know this isn't necessarily financial, but just as an example, a to-do list, because I have it set up here on paper and whatever, and it's limited, and I kept for how many months. And so I finally went back and it's like, I think I had started one digitally. I did back in 2023. So what I did is I split what was there into 3 sheets, one for me, one for my son, and one for my brother, because I'm like, yeah, there's probably ways I could color code it and da-da-da, but it's just going to be easier for me and my brain to separate into 3 sheets. And I need to go back to everything from 2023 and put it in there to current. And yes, that may be a waste of time, but for me, it's not, because there are a lot of things I may have missed that I needed to do, and I need to go follow up. But I don't know what I did do, what I didn't do, whatever, until I get everything from the paper into the computer on the sheets. So I know, so that's my project for this month, is getting all those to-dos and all those notes in there to see what I do need to do, if there's anything I still need to do, and what I did complete for the 3 of us, because it's crazy when you do a lot of stuff. So
It sure is, and everybody needs different kinds of tools. And that's part of this journey. It's part of the mindset, understanding what tools help you and what tools don't. Some people, Nancy, you brought up the B word, didn't you? The
I
budget
did.
word. I mean, some people thrive on a budget.
Yeah.
You know, a straight up original budget. Some people who I've coached don't even want to hear that word. It's a dirty word. And so maybe we approach the habit building, the tracking, the understanding as journaling or money envelopes and not so much a written standard budget. But that's part of what a coach does. They understand, they know their players. They understand where their strengths and weaknesses may be, and they figure out how to resonate, how to speak to each one in such a way that it's encouraging and they get them heading in that winning direction. So that's a big thing about coaching. Um, and accountability is another thing, and that's great for building habits. And that's kind of an offensive strategy. And Margot said, I'm one of those that don't like the word budget. Yeah, it's a dirty word for some people.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, just reflecting on what Tracy said, looking after 3 people, that can be quite overwhelming. And also for some, and clearly for you, getting everything down on the paper is helpful, because you then know where you are and you can start prioritizing what you want to do. Other people make their money journey on, I just need the next step. So what is the next step that I need to take? I don't want to have all the other, 15 or 16 steps that I'm not ready for. So that's a classic example, and it's a really good example about what works for people. So I would say the first thing to be thinking about is, what is going to work for me? Do I like the budget word? Do I not? How learning about yourself, am I somebody that can do this in the morning? Do I do it in the night? Do I need somebody to remind me, like my partner? Do I do electronic? It's interesting, Tracy was saying electronic and paper. So what is your system that's going to work? And the other thing I would say is, don't be scared to get wrong. If you do it for the electronic and that doesn't work because you've got to go and find it, you're not in front of your computer all the time, or do I have a whiteboard in the kitchen? Do I have a notepad that I do? I think one of the first things to do to go on the offensive is learn about yourself. And that again takes practice. And it's forgiving yourself if you do something and it hasn't worked for you. Well, nothing's gone wrong. It's just you found a different way of not doing it for you.
Yeah.
But for me, it's about hooking into, what do I want to happen? So coming back to the sports, I was listening to something, and I follow the sport of horses. So, and with the exception of horse racing, which there are rules and regulations, but sometimes when riders go and ride their horses in competition, it's not to win. And that sounds really ridiculous, but it's not. It's about, maybe it's a baby horse that's inexperienced, that their win is to go into a busy environment and that horse be comfortable with that. And they don't need the pressure of going for the sparkly, shiny rosette. What they need is to come back with a happy horse that's gone into an environment that it's not used to. So actually, to take that into money, if you can look at your bank account every day, or you can write down what you've spent in the last week, or whatever it is, you might not have saved a penny, but that might be your win, in the same way as taking a horse into a strange environment and making it happy. So I think that for me is going on the offensive, is finding out what works for you so that you can use that to build your blocks, but also continue to learn. I've been doing money I'm an accountant. I have worked in the finance business for over 30 years. I'm still learning, and if I posted on social media, I'm still learning, I make mistakes too, I don't care if people if people criticize that, because actually I think it would be worse for me to be in a position to say I've nothing else to learn. How dull and boring would that be? So I think we've got to permit ourselves to know each other, to know ourselves, and just keep going. Sorry, I went on a bit. I was passionate about that.
No kidding, but it's so true. And Mary, you said whole new philosophy. Life is a schooling show. And by the way, you can unmute yourself and actually speak. we we encourage that. We encourage dialogue here. So, but I love that. Life is a schooling show. Um, and we're all learning about money.
Yep. One of the other things I was thinking about too is, when you think about defense, so we've obviously have some good offense, and we're thinking about what we need to do and things like that. But when you're thinking about defense, you want to keep the ball. You're trying to keep the ball so somebody else doesn't take the ball, because you want to go and you want to go down the thing, do your thing, get some more points, and keep the game rolling. It's kind of like your credit card debt and your interest payments. So how do you stop from increasing, somebody getting the ball, increasing your debt? Is either making more money or watching your expenses. And I know that next to budgeting is a kind of another taboo word, because people are like, well, I make good money and I want to spend whatever I want. True. But you're in debt because of your past actions. So you didn't take your money and pay off the bills. You got comfortable with spending more and allowing the credit card debt to come up. And again, this is not a judgment. This is just straight facts. And you can either relate and go, oh God, yeah, that's me, or go, oh, you're full of, but it is what it is, because your credit card debt is your past purchases. So that's where you need to be on the defense to go, okay, maybe I need to stop spending here and here and here and here. And that's what's going to keep you having the ball so you can put the money where you want it to. And I apologize, I forgot who talked about the why and having goals for your finances. But if you want to buy a house, if you want to buy a car, if you want to put money into college, you want to take a dream vacation. I mean, I would love to go to take an Alaskan cruise. Never been on a cruise ship, but I would like to do it. It's not even in my partial bucket, like to save, because I don't know. It's a visual dream. It's not let me put money towards this dream. So if you have those money put money towards this dream, you need to knock down the debts. So be on the defense. Go internally and say, okay, Nancy, I need to stop spending on. And again, if that's self-care every week, with your girlfriend on Saturday is to sit at Starbucks for 2 hours and talk about life, spend that $15 at Starbucks or whatever, you might get a sandwich and a drink and a whatever. Then find another place in your spending to cut. So that's how you can be a little bit more defensive on your money.
Yeah, that's good. It's very good. I know for myself, even before I even made a budget, I always tracked my expenses as far as my regular bills, and I always tracked my spending. And that's when I started getting that light bulb moment when I'd see like Macy's, Publix, Macy's, the dollar store, whatever it was. And I'm like, okay, I could be putting this money somewhere else. You got to have that goal, like Leslie said, and to your credit too, Nancy, thinking about those plans that you want for the future. Do you want all your money? Do you want Macy's to have all your money, or do you want to take your money and have a nice trip? So, coming up with those goals, and that gives you something to move towards. It's like motivation. It's motivation.
Mary just said, money is the ball, defend your balls. I love that, Mary.
It's true.
It is true. But here's
you made me laugh now, so now I will think of
view,
it differently. I'm going to defend my balls.
Exactly. Not that we don't have money, just saying. I laugh at my own jokes. Listen, I have worked with people, and just this part of the discussion has really made me think, what is the first thing you need to understand to make progress with your money? My thought is, excuse me, the first question is, am I spending more than I make? Or am I spending less than I make? And I work with people who might make $50,000 a year and they're living paycheck to paycheck and putting things on their credit cards. But I just worked with people who are making more than $250,000 a year. Guess what? They're living paycheck to paycheck, and they have no savings, and tons of debt. Okay? So this is kind of universal. It doesn't matter how much you make. I also know people who never made more than $30,000 a year who died and left more than $1 million to their children. And they never really spent anything. I think there are extremes of frugality and extremes of wealth, but it's what you do, what you choose to do with your income. And then, are your expenses balanced? And do you have that sort of, I call it extra? It's the difference between what you bring in and what you spend. And that is where you start building. That's your offensive money, because it's building your future. And this is where the habits come in. This is where understanding where you are and where you want to go, what you want to build, and then you use that. That is the material. And so as you go through life, as I go through life, I learn where I want to spend and need to spend. Where is the value for myself and my family? And then what's the value of my future? And then I build that future. And when I was younger, I was not intentional. I didn't think about those things. Those are by trial and error. So I have made some really bad money choices. I have been there. But I've also made some really good money choices, and I built my future so I could retire at age 48. And I've been retired for 14 years.
And
And
Leslie, thank you so much for your service of being a retired Navy.
it was absolutely my honor to serve in the Navy, but I have a lot of friends who are higher, who retired at a higher rank and therefore a um, higher income level and higher pension level. And they are worse off than I am, and they can never retire from working after the Navy. Why? Just what I just talked about, right?
Right.
And I have friends who retired or made a lot less than I did, but they're wealthier than I am. I was a little bit of a late bloomer. So,
I think that's very true with the income, because I work with healthcare professionals and they're making at least 100,000 or more. Um, but the debt, I get so surprised when they tell me the debt that they have. And I have a little theory. I think it's because when you have a good job, especially if it's like a W-2 job where you know you're getting that paycheck every single week, you sort of just know that you're getting it so you feel more comfortable spending your money. Whereas if you knew that maybe that paycheck wasn't coming in, I think you'd be a little more frugal with your money. So I just think it's that complacency and just that routine of just, counting on that and, being free to use that credit card, feeling because you know that the money's coming in. But the problem is, you're thinking that credit card's just for I'm just going to use it for an emergency, but you're not using it for an emergency. And then something else happens and it just builds into this snowball. And then you get into the situation that's very hard to get out of.
I just saw that Hala raised her hand. Do you have something to share?
Yes, I do, because this actually may not resonate to many, but this is my experience. So basically, because a lot of people, this is when I was in corporation, I was making great money. Like I could have probably by now, I don't own a home. I could probably own a home. And just knowing like my background, my dad worked with the Shah, I could have properties, but the revolution happened, we lost everything. So I lived every moment as if it's my last. So a lot of people have that mentality that if you don't live like you're lacking and you're not enjoying your life to do what you want to do, and you're always like saving, putting aside, and not enjoying. So I spent to the last minute, like, yes, money came, money went, and I didn't listen. So a balance, what you talked about, Leslie, it is so important to have balance, not coming from lack, to also enjoy your life, to do what you want to do. It's so important too. So that's what happened to me. And I didn't plan to be an entrepreneur. I thought like, okay, I'm getting a lot of money from corporation and I'm making good money. I'm enjoying life. But knowing in the situation I am, I went ahead and I'm being vulnerable here. I went ahead and I kept maxing out my cards and I'm like, oh, just say yes, get in this, do
Yeah.
this, and you'll have success and you're fine. A lot of us entrepreneurs end up just spending and spending and spending and not realizing. And then at the end, it's like, oh my God, what did I do? I maxed out my cards. Now what do I do? So yeah, so that happens to a lot of entrepreneurs.
That brings up a really good point, and then I'll be quiet for a minute. Um, when you find yourself in that situation where you've maxed out debt and you're spending more than you make, and you're asking, what do I do now? Do I go get another credit card if they'll give it to me and max it out? Or what? Well, the fact is, now you have to go on the offensive if you choose to change the situation. Okay, you recognize where you are, you're at a decision point, and you recognize, I can't sustain this, and I'm going to go bankrupt because I can't pay all my debt, or I can do something. And in my view, you have to have more money to work with. You have to have enough of that. I called it extra, the difference between your income and your expenses. So, 3 ways to do that. One, bring in more income, whether that's a side hustle, a second job, whatever, bring in more income. Maybe family members contribute. I don't know, but that's part of what you have to work out. Cut your expenses. And so you go in, you figure out what's a want, what's a need, where can I reduce what I'm spending and put that money now toward digging out of the deep hole I've dug. And then the other thing is sell stuff. Sell stuff and bring in what you can. And you probably have to do all three. And Margot, um, uh, do you want to tell us that story? She
I
just
don't know.
posted a comment, but I don't know if you want to or not. You don't have to.
If people want to hear it.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I was working full time, going to school, working, and I got sick and the doctors couldn't figure out what it was. And I had to quit work in November of 96. And then I could at least go to school part-time. Because if I missed class, I could just teach myself. And then by 99, I couldn't work at all.
Because you were so ill, right?
Yeah. And then they finally figured out what was going on, but they wouldn't do the surgery right away. And then I finally had the right surgery in 2011.
Wow.
And then when I was recovering from it, I got disseminated valley fever, which knocked me out for 2 years. And so in November 2013, I finally completely recovered and had to start life over from scratch.
Yeah.
I had debt, and then I was supposed to do the RN refresher course, and it got postponed.
Margot's a
And
nurse.
then my mom's house, my late mom's house I was living in, flooded.
Mhm.
It was
So then,
setback after setback.
yeah, and then I finally had to move up to Phoenix to do a different RN refresher course, and that took time because my brother didn't trust that I was actually recovered, and he was the gatekeeper to my mom's money to pay for the refresher course. And so I was donating plasma so I could eat. And so I did the RN refresher course in a little less than a year and started back work in, I was like after Thanksgiving, and I want to say 2016, maybe 2017. I can't remember anymore. Um, and then I was at one job for like 3 months and then another job. And then I finally got the job I have now that I've been at for 7.5 years. But I had to eventually get a new car, which is now an old car because my other car was from the 90s and there was all kinds of things wrong with it because I drive all day. And so I paid off like my credit cards.
Oh, well done. Well done, Margot.
I paid off a bunch of different debts and actually like had a decent savings.
Mm-hmm.
And I paid off my newish car that's now old, my 2015 car that I got in 2017. I paid that off early, which I probably shouldn't have done because that dinged my credit score for length of time, but I paid that off. But then I had all these and then I finally gave myself some vacations, which I had never done. And so I spent
Yes.
money there. And then I had unexpected expenses show up that added up to a lot of money. With like the current car I have now, I even considered getting another like just barely used car to replace this car. But when I went and looked last year, I'd end up having like a $500 a month car payment. And then my insurance and everything would go up. And so I just had to tell myself when I was paying $3,000 for them to replace something on my current car that, oh, that's just, this many months of car payments.
You know what, Margot? Yeah. What I'm hearing is you you recovered physically, and then with intention and persistence and consistency, you hacked those debts. You made really good decisions. The car thing, I drive my cars forever. And I don't buy new cars. But then when I get them, I drive them for 16, 17 years. It's just been my pattern. So it's a choice, and it's all choices, how you're going to attack those challenges, those financial challenges. And you brought up saving. Um, Saving is that material that you're building your future with. And so you're doing the right things. You're doing the right.
Except for now, my savings is substantially lower because of all those unplanned expenses last year. So I basically have nothing for retirement at all.
Okay,
Zero.
okay. Financial coach friends and anyone who's known me for a little while talking about money, how do we defend against those unforeseen expenses? Anyone?
You choose
Sinking-
your mindset.
Sinking funds.
Emergency fund. Emergency fund, which is a sinking fund essentially. Yeah, you have that emergency fund, and I would say that is the number one savings fund you need to start on. But that's how you tackle that. And I also highly recommend you segregate by purpose your savings. Because when you want to take those well-deserved, well-earned trips, Margot, then you can use that vacation fund to fund that, or your points from work.
And Margot, I just want to applaud you. Just the sacrifices that you have made financially, mentally, everything. I mean, to have to give plasma just to make sure that you have groceries on the table. I applaud you, because there's a lot of people out there who wouldn't even consider doing those types of things, or like Leslie said earlier, sell some stuff, get another part-time job. I mean, be so proud of where you've been and where you are now, that you've made so many good sacrifices in order to make it work for you.
I totally echo that, Margot. I think that's phenomenal, and my goodness, what a story to hear. of all the different things that you had to face. And without trying to patronize you in any way, my goodness, what lessons you've had to learn on the way. And it is really challenging. You've still got unexpected expenses. And I was going to touch on what we were just a little bit, and actually you came in with a phenomenal example. But you know, we're saying, you know, when you've got a fixed income, and then, you know, if your income is lower than your expenditure, you know, you're either going to run down your savings or you're going to run into debt. But actually, sometimes we have, and you know, we've got entrepreneurs on the course or on the call, and I work with entrepreneurs, and one of the challenges for those is that, particularly in the start of your business, quite often your income is not certain. And also you're in an investment stage with your business. So you're having to buy things for the first time, you're having to set things up, you know, your branding, your whatever it is, and your income isn't known, and that is very challenging. And that's when we do have to rely on some debt sometimes, or we'd run down our savings. And it's a real juggling act, because we don't know when we're going to get sick, and we don't know when we're going to have these fundamentals. So at any given time, we might not have the perfect situation. We might not have those sinking funds. We might not have those emergency savings. But and we all ride our luck from time to time. However, coming back to those good habits, in those, making sure that whilst your income might not be certain, you are spending wisely, and you're looking at the likelihood. I'm always a big risk assessor. You know, what is the likelihood of my income going, and what can I do? And I quite often think, and I'm not, you know, in your situation, Margot, because ill health, you know, came, but I talked to my son recently, who's in New Zealand, and he was struggling getting a job. And I said to him, there's two extremes here. There is I'm going to get a job by the end of the weekend, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get that job. And
Great.
then there's the other one, which I think you're a little bit leaning towards, which is, I'm going to wait for life to happen to me. And I said, as long as you are moving the dial towards that energy of, I'm going to make this happen. And I heard that from you, Margot, tonight. I'm going to make this happen, which is really empowering. And I know that it's not going to be easy, but it is about, you know, and I think when you come through a difficult time, of course, you should have a vacation. You have to look after your physical health. But what you've done is get back to those good habits. And yeah, like Nancy, I completely applaud you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, and by the way, my son did get a job.
Yay!
Good.
Good for him.
Congrats.
Well, we are running at the top of the hour, so I wanted to just close out and see if there's any last minute thoughts or questions or nuggets that anybody wants to ask or share.
I heard something today that was actually helpful for me when you're like defining necessity versus like want, is the question of, if I lost my job today, would I still buy it?
Oh, love that.
And I was like, oh, that's actually a really good way for me, like, to look at my like financial, like, if I, you know, kind of in that sense of, if you lost your job today, would you still buy it? And it's like, you know, you'd still pay your mortgage or your rent, but you know, you might not buy that box of cookies.
Yeah.
And you know, that brings me to another point, though, is that I have this Post-it note in front of me that says, does this support the life I want to create? And, you know, sometimes we have to, you know, financial coaches are great. You have accountability, you have focus, all these other things. But sometimes, like you said, you need that extra accountability to yourself. And even something small like that, or what you just said, is just fantastic for really, you know, making choices as far as what you want to spend and where you want your money to go.
What value does it bring to you today and to your future?
Yeah.
You've got to still consider that you need a short-term strategy, a mid-term strategy, and a long-term strategy because seasons change. And I really like that. I call them thinking filters, right? Thinking through a decision. And if I lost my job tomorrow, would I still buy this? That's a great thinking filter, particularly in times of uncertainty.
Mhm. That's
Mary,
so
that is
true.
a phenomenal one. I love that. And with your permission, I might borrow that. And
Oh.
you know, some of my business clients, you know, I could say, you know, if you knew you were going to get some sales, would you do this? But equally, if you knew that
Yeah.
sales were going to be in another 2 or 3 weeks, would you do that? So, if you don't mind, I might borrow that and just twist it around for my
Oh,
clients
sure.
because I think that's
Feel
amazing.
free, because I mean, it's not even my original thing. I was listening to somebody talking about money and spending on a YouTube video, and it was actually one of the things she said about like people defining wants and needs. And she said one way to look at a need is if you lost your job, well, she said tomorrow, would you still buy it? But I just felt like today, you know, kind of like really
Mhm.
putting it in an emergency, like in a mode of if you lost your job, would you still do this? Would you still pay for this? And it's like, yes, there are certain things you absolutely would,
Mm.
even without your job, because you need a roof over your head, etc.
Right.
And basic food is still a necessity, but there's plenty of things that I have and I will purchase that are definitely not, that would not make that cut. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and oh, and another one that somebody did was she added up all of her purchases on Amazon last year. And I was like, I'm gonna do that
Okay.
because
No,
I
that
think that is a really good wake up call because this person was also saying like she personally didn't want to support them as a business anymore. And she was like, and she added up that she'd actually spent $11,000 on
oh
Amazon. She's
wow.
like, and here I am, I spent, I mean, you know, and it was like $500 here, $300 there, you know, like it wasn't all at once, but over the course of a year. And she's like, okay, that was eye opening that I've actually spent that much money on a company that I say I don't want to support. And I'm like,
You,
and I feel like, oh, I need to do that too, because I tend to 10, 20, $30 myself on
Mhm.
Amazon real easy.
Nickel and diming,
Yeah.
10, 20, 10, 10 and 20ing
Yeah.
yourself. I had clients who found they spent $5,000 a year
Mhm.
at Chick-fil-A.
Oh my God.
Wow. Yeah.
It was a family of four, both worked, and they had active teenagers
Yep, the drive-through moms.
as kids. And I've been through that phase,
Yep.
believe me, but it was not quite that.
Well, I mean, but it's actually probably not as hard to do as you think. I mean,
It's
okay, that's
not
divided
hard.
by 12. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
That's like
5,000 divided by 12, so $400 and over. And I mean, that's like $100 a week. That's only a couple trips if you have a big
Yeah.
family.
Especially with
absolutely.
inflation. Like we just went to Kohl's last week for the got fish for Friday. And just for me and my husband, two people was like $50 for
Yeah.
Culver's, which is fast food,
Mhm.
you know.
I know. I did like a
Yeah.
Culver's thing was like, I think we didn't even get like a full meal and I got like a burger or something. This was a while ago. And like a dish of, I mean, it was like $13. I'm like, what? You
You
know, it
know, and
wasn't
then
even a full meal. Like, and it was for one person. And I thought, wow, okay, that treat yourself thing, not so cool. Like, you
and then
know,
Amazon, what do they have? One click.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, and
They
I do
make it
like the
too
add to
easy.
cart and wait. But even then, you still buy stuff. I mean, you buy, oh, this $20 thing for the dog for, you know, tummy powder for probiotic and this $30, this $30 vitamin and this whatever. And I'm like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna add up how much I spent on Amazon last year because I think I need that shock for myself.
Okay. And you might take a look at how much you spent on fast food or other categories.
Yeah.
Just because looking
Yeah.
back, you can then decide what habits you want to move forward with. You find those patterns, and it's like, ooh, I don't want to spend $5,000. That was not us, but you don't want to spend $5,000 on Chick-fil-A. Imagine what you could do with 5 grand. But
Yep.
anyway,
Yeah, it's actually, in a sense, that's actually less than $100 a week. 52 weeks in a year, that's actually $5,000 is actually less than $100 a week.
I know, but
Yeah.
know,
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not justifying it. I'm just
it's
saying that it's actually easy to
Yeah.
spend less than $100 a week on miscellaneous things that you probably don't care about as much as you think you do, but you do in that moment. And then the next thing you know, you've spent $5,000 on junk you didn't care about.
Yeah.
and that was not all fast food. That was not Starbucks. That was
Yeah.
not, that was one restaurant. So anyway, I know Nancy, you're trying to wrap us up here.
That's
So
all good. It's good conversation. If we go a minute or two over, I'm not too stressed. But yes, thank you so much, everybody. I want to thank our Money Made Easy community coaches. We've got Kimberly, Jenny, Leslie, Stacy, who is not here today. She has a newborn, so she
yeah,
is on maternity leave, and myself, Nancy. But we have a community. If you just look up Money Made Easy community on Facebook, we're every day we're giving you some financial advice, tips, tricks, all of these good things. Plus, we have these events from time to time. We had a symposium back in February, a summit, excuse me.
Summit.
And we plan on having another one this fall, and giving again more information. This is what we want to do for our community, is provide this information to you so you can be better educated, make better decisions, and feel that financial freedom in your personal life. So we appreciate you coming out today, and feel free to reach out to us or post something in the Facebook group, because we're always looking at it, and we'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right, everyone.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good day.
Bye.